Hi there. How are you, my friends? Assalamu alaikum. Let me look at some of the verses of the Qur'an and illustrate a point with these verses. One of the arguments that I try to make on this channel is that we have been handed down an interpretation, a reading of the Qur'an, of our deen called Islam, which is a corruption of the original authentic meaning and intention of this deen or the scripture. Why do I say so? I believe that over time, soon after the passing of our beloved Messenger Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, enemy forces, people that had bad faith towards him, that wanted to undermine and subvert the original authentic message. And it's not uncommon. I mean, don't make as if it's uncommon. People always, throughout history, whenever there's good established, whenever a good man comes and does something, there's always those who will come and step in and try and undermine it and subvert it. Because there are always people that want more for themselves, and they can't live with a just or a fair structuring of society. And so what they want is they want an unfair structuring of society. They want more for themselves at the cost of the rest. And that's a human trait. The Quran highlights it, and that is it, that man was turned into greedy. Alhaakumut takathur hatta zurtumul wa bihubbil khayri la shadid. That very important chapter towards the end of the Quran, where Allah says, man is in his desire, in his love of materiality, material things, extreme. That's a fact. The Quran admits it. It makes it known. It's an eternalized fact. Now on earth are you going to tell me that there were no such people in the time of the Prophet? When he passed away, there was no greedy people. There were no people that were they not human? What were they? Were they angels? All these Sahaba were angels. No, nobody evil. You're not allowed to say anyone had a bad intention. That is an unlikely and a belief that can only be described as based in fantasy, in nonsense. The fact is that there were people who hated the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam. There were people who hated him his entire life. There were people that the Quran actually condemns. And the Quran says don't even make salah for them when they pray, when they die. Don't make salah for them. Don't stand on their graves. Don't respect them. Let their memory die out. These were people that were Muslim, that were called Muslim, that Muslim names, that counted themselves in. These people were there, and they were there when the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam died, and they were always hoping that they could make a comeback. Now, did they make a comeback? Well, there were wars. Immediately after the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam died, there were wars. There were the Ridda wars. There were the wars, the insurrection. There was the assassination of Umar. There was the assassination of Uthman. There was the war between Ali and Muawiyah. There was the war between Ibn Zubayr and the Umayyad kings. There was the war between Muhammad Hanfiya in near Kufa. There were so many wars. There were wars, unending wars for more than 100 years, and then culminating in the biggest war, the overthrow of the Umayyad and the establishment of the Abba. There was a non-stop process of war. Now you tell me, people who are all on the right track, people who are all righteous, people who all have clean, good hearts, who worship God, who stand for truth, who admit and endorse every verse, how can they be at war? How can people who all unite on truth, how can they be at war? Now, that is what your muftis and your imams are teaching you, is that all the Sahabas were noble. Some of them made an innocent mistake. It was an innocent mistake for them to kill and slaughter 1 million people. It was an innocent mistake. Now that really you can teach to a bunch of monkeys and to sheep and to cattle, but not to me. There's no innocent mistake that leads to the death of 1 million people. You are questioning the very essence of the cosmos, as of God's sense of justice, of his sense of mercy, of kindness, to say that 1 million people died in the civil wars between Muawiyah and Ali and Hussein and what. It's all an innocent. It's not an innocent mistake. It's a calculated, orchestrated hijacking. It's a calculated, orchestrated subversion of what Islam is. And I'm here to wake you up, if you're still asleep, that what you've been handed down is the Islam of Yazid. You've been inherited, you've been bequeathed the Islam of the Abbasid kings. You've been bequeathed and you've been handed down the Islam of the Wahhabis, of the Saudi family. You've been given the Islam that was supported and promoted by Lawrence of Arabia, by the British Empire. That is the Islam you have. And you're still sitting around and saying, no, I'm going to die for this Islam, I'm going to die. This is the Islam that the devil has reinvented for you. This is not the Islam that your noble Prophet Muhammad ﷺ bequeathed or left behind for you. And how did they do it? How did they engineer this Islam? They've engineered this Islam by moving the sacred text, the most sacred book of principles and guidance, to move it to the side. To put it to the side and to say, before you read that book, you first need to read the books of Abu Huraira, the books of Dhahabi, the books of Ka'b al-Ahbar, the ideas of of all these people must now come before the Qur'an. And all they have to do is to say, Qala Rasulullah sallallahu. All that Abu Huraira has to do is to say, Qala Rasulullah. He only has to say, this is the words of the Prophet. The Prophet has no say in telling him, look, I didn't say that, or I did say that. No, all he has to say is that. Never mind of Imam Ali or Hussein, Hassan, Fatima, all of these family members who lived in his house, if they disagreed with it, no, it's this guy, we believe him. And then they created an air of holiness around these people. They made these people above criticism. They took Abu Huraira, they took Muawiyah, they took Abu Sufyan, all these underminers, these murderers of the Islam of the Prophet. Right? They took them and they made them holy. They told you cannot question them. And then they made a Islam that doesn't question the king anymore. Now you have an Islam that the king can live happily. He can abuse the wealth. He can enrich himself. He can allow for an injustice to dominate or to reign in society. And you are there sitting, this is my Islam, I will die with this. As long as Mufti Meng can tell me fairy tales, as long as whoever Mufti, Maulana, Da'wah bro can talk to me, tell me, you there, man, this is Islam, you great, you're going to be the future, man. Islam, we got a great history, man. We conquered here, we conquered there, we conquered this Constantinople, we conquered Iran, we conquered This is your Islam. You want to conquer, you want to steal people's lands, and then you want to cry, or you want to stand up for justice when it comes to Gaza. That what is happening in Gaza is the Islam that you want. This whole Gaza genocide, usurpation of people's land, murdering of children, this is exactly the type of Islam that you want to promote when you promote Wahhabi, Salafi Islam. Because they do it. You didn't know about Yemen because you didn't care to know about it. But in Yemen, schools were bombed, school buses were destroyed, children were killed, tens of thousands of people were bombed out of their homes, out of their schools, out of their hospitals. But you didn't care about that. But that is exactly the type of Zionism and Salafism and Wahhabi Islam are all part of the same satanic family. listen to me. I'm not. And if you feel offended, you need to not get angry with me. You need to go and hit the books. Hit the books and make sure that Anwar is telling lies. Go and read some books. Stop getting emotional, because you're acting stupid if you get emotional every time somebody tells you something that makes sense. I'm not lying to you when I say to you that the Salafis and the Wahhabis are capable of the same genocide that the Zionists are. They're all satanic. And I include the Anglo-Saxon, racist, atheistic empire from America and including Britain. They're all Satanist. There's no Muslim Satanist and Christian Satanist. I mean, the devil himself was a Muslim. If you read the Qur'an, you see there that he was sitting there and saying to God, but I worship, I'm better than. He was admitting he loved God, but he was filled with iniquity, with injustice. Now come to the point of this video. I'm going to show you how they've hijacked your Qur'an's meaning by coming and by absolving the injustice or the unfair people in this world. By trying to run away from meaning, they come and they create and they make your Qur'an almost like unintelligible. And you have to agree with me. You've read the Qur'an. You know that sometimes these guys translate it to the point where it's unintelligible. I'm going to take you an example now. Bear with me. We're going to take a few minutes with it, but in those few minutes, I'm going to illustrate to you what is the message of Islam. Before I get there, in summary, what I'm saying is that Islam is about re-engineering the social structure, the society as it is, the way the world works, the way money, people, relationships, interactions, all of that. Islam is there to re-engineer it, to create a dispensation that benefits everyone equally, or that is an equal burden on everyone as such. Right? So that social structure is what Islam is interested in, what the Qur'an is interested in. How women fit into the structure, how money, how loans, how inheritances, how compassion and charity, everything fits into that social structure. Right, and how it should work together. Now, what if I tell you that the Qur'an addresses that social structure many times, but they refuse to give the barakah, the rightful meaning of those verses? I'm going to show you now. They will rather let the Qur'an be unintelligible than to give you the real meaning. And I'm not saying all of the translators are culpable. I'm saying that there's almost like a groupthink attitude, a silo mentality. Like you're not allowed to see a different meaning in the verse, even though it makes sense, the Arabic, you're not allowed to. But I'm going to show you now how we can see the real meaning. I'm going to take an example here of this verse. It is in chapter 43, verse 33. Now, I'm going to first read to you this, and you tell me, be honest with me now, go with me, tell me in the comments what you think. But here's a verse, 33, chapter 43. Zukhruf, I think, is the chapter, is the name of that chapter. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولولا أن يكون الناس أمة واحدة. The meaning, and were it not that mankind would have become of one community. ولولا أن يكون الناس أمة واحدة. Were it not that mankind, the meaning, were it not that mankind would have become of one community. And now comes the tafsir. This is the traditionalist. This is what they want you to think, right? This is what the meaning that they push. This is the meaning, right? The first part is just a translation. Then here's the meaning that they push. Means, were it not for the fact that many ignorant people would think that our giving them wealth was a sign that we love the person to whom we give it, and thus they would have agreed upon disbelief for the sake of wealth. Oh my word. Oh my word. Just think about it. Is that the meaning? Were it not that mankind would have become of one community means, were it not for the fact that many ignorant people would think that our giving them wealth was a sign that we love the person to whom, it doesn't make sense. You are adding 90% more or 150% more than what the verse is saying. And then, of course, they say this is the view of Ibn Abbas, Al-Hassan, Qutala, Sudi, which is the claim. And then they say these people obviously get it from the Prophet. Right. Now, let's look at the next piece. This is still the same verse. لَا جَعَلْنَا لِمَنْ يَكْفُرُ بِالرَّحْمَنِ لِبُيُوتِهِمْ سُقُفًا مِنْ فِضَّةٍ وَمَعَارِجٍ. We would have, were it not for all that stuff, right? Were it not for the fact that many ignorant, blah, 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 we would have provided for those who disbelieve in the most gracious silver roofs for their houses and elevators. So if it was not that all that blah, 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 blah explanation, I'm not saying blah, blah, blah for the Qur'an verses, I'm saying that for all the talk here. We would have provided for all those who disbelieve in the most silver roofs for their houses. Means ladders. Now the meaning means ladders and staircases of silver. This was the view of. Right. So they're not adding too much in here. They're basically just rendering the meaning. But what they are saying is so illogical. What is this saying is that if it wasn't for that bad thing, then all the rich people would be, then all the disbelievers, all the people who reject God would have gotten bling houses with bling, silver this, silver that. Alayha yazharun, whereby they ascend, means to go up in their houses who have doors, blah, blah, blah. Right. So, just on this verse quickly, that's where that verse ends. This is 1, 2, 3, divided into 3. If it was not that the world would be evil, right, we would have given the power of the rich, those who deny God, we would have given them bling houses. That's just in a very simple way. Does that make sense to you? Does that make sense to you? If you look around you today, Hollywood, the big guys who are pushing all the Zionist agenda in the world, the military-industrial complex, the pharmaceutical poisoning industry, the vanity industry. Is it not a fact that those are the people of bling? Is it not a fact that they are already, so the verse is contradicted, the meaning that they give is clearly contradicted. I've racked my brains trying to make sense of what they are saying here. I went so far, this verse was so crazy, the translation. I couldn't get to the meaning because of what they're saying, because it's militating, it's making war against my common sense. And I even went so far as to consult this what do you call it, AI. And I asked AI, please explain this to me. And AI says this verse presents a hypothetical scenario from Allah's infinite wisdom. It says that if Allah were to grant immense visible wealth and luxury to the disbelievers, it would have dangerous consequences. But isn't that what we see? Don't we see immense visible wealth to those who disbelieve, to the rejectors, to those who mock Allah, Europe, America? Don't we see them mocking God? You don't see China mocking God. You don't see India mocking God. I mean, there's a lot of Indians that mock Muslims and Islam, but mockery of God is done in the world, in the atheistic world, in the West, in America, in Britain, in France. That is where God is being ridiculed and mocked. That is where the thrust of new atheism is. That's the heartland of new atheism. And guys like Richard Dawkins, they make a business out of selling millions of books through mocking God. Yes, they do mock God. They don't just mock religion. So it's a direct, even AI, and AI is not some magical process of giving you truth. AI just goes and digs into the mainstream literature and it gives you what that literature has to say. So this is what the mainstream is saying. This verse presents a hypothetical scenario from Allah. It says that if Allah were to grant immense visible wealth and luxury, it would have dangerous consequences. It might tempt everyone, including the weak and faith, to become disbelievers, thinking that the worldly success is sign. But that's exactly what's happening. Are you with me still? Do you follow with me what I'm saying? Atheism or weakness in faith, Muslims, is exactly a fact because they see that the powerful and the rich are atheistic. Hollywood is officially satanic or atheistic or Zionist. Pick any one of the three. And so you are, people emulate, people idolize those people. So the Qur'an would actually be contradicting reality if this was the meaning. And that is why I'm saying they are prepared to make your Qur'an incomprehensible. Now I'm going to give you the meaning here, and you tell me what makes more sense. You can tell me in my comments, in the commentary, comment section. You can tell me if you're an Arabic expert. You can tell me if I'm weak on the Arabic here. I am very, very on the Arabic here. I've read, I've translated, I've worked with Arabic now for many months. And there's a lot of meanings that could be squeezed out of Arabic. Arabic allows itself very easily for shades of meaning. There's more possibility of shades of meaning in Arabic than in English, I believe. So let's come to the translation of وَلَوْلَا أَنْ يَكُونَ النَّاسُ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً. Wa means if, walau, if not that it is, yakuna, they are, annas, people. If not it is that people are, ummatan, one, a nation that is one, a community that is one. That is the rough meaning that comes out of the Arabic. But instead of saying a whole lot of words like they've put here, like this is what they've done, means if it were not for the fact that many ignorant people would think that our giving them wealth was a sign that we love the instead of lying and adding meaning, I'm just going to translate it as it states there. If humanity fails to operate as one community under God's benefaction, why I put that in is because in the previous verse it said, they say that God is not Ar-Rahman. He does not divide or allocate fortune. So that is why I added that there. It just flows with the previous verse. If humanity fails to operate as one community. Now compare that to this. And were it not that mankind would have become of one community. It's a slight slant in that if it was not that man formed one community versus if it was not that man would have become of one community means, and then you have to add all that in. This is all of this that they have to add now to the meaning. Meanwhile, take it simple. If humanity fails, وَلَوْ لَا أَنْ يَكُونَ النَّاسُ أُمَّةً وَاحِدًا وَلَوْ لَا أَنْ يَكُونَ النَّاسُ مُخْلِصِينَ. You see, if it is not that mankind will have this quality, and this quality is operating as one community. In other words, the meaning there is very simple. If we don't act like one brotherhood, like one fraternity, if we act in our own interests, if the rich look after themselves, if the workers look after their rights, if the clergy, the holy men, if they look after them, if we fragment society, if we operate against each other, in other words, disunited in a way where we are not working in one social structure. Remember I mentioned the word structure earlier. If we don't regard ourselves and the world as one structure, one unit that we must all work fairly and justly in. If we don't do that, that's the meaning. That's the meaning. What will happen if that is the case? We shall make it so that those who deny God as being the source of all benefaction and assuming themselves to be the creators of wealth, that their dwellings will be endowed with silver facades and stairways where they could live conspicuously well. Alayha yazharun. Put themselves on a kind of a conspicuous display. Simple meaning, but very, very subversive to those who want to maintain an elitist agenda. Those who want to say that the powerful must enjoy more power, the weak must languish. You see, now you are scratching with the Saudi power. If you are saying that we are all one, because they don't want to be one, they want to be the king and the princess and the elite and the royalty. And you Pakistanis, and you are Shia, and you are foreigners. But if they, that is exactly the conditions where people are fighting for their own tribe, for their own class, for their own nationality, for their own religious sect or religious group. If that is the case, if the wealthy will fight for the wealthy and the poor must fight for the poor and the rich must, then it's going to become the case where we shall make all those who deny God them to be, that their dwellings, that they will be endowed with silver facades and stairways, and that they would live conspicuously. Now immediately the verse actually is congruent. It is in agreement with what we see. We see a world where Hollywood rules, all the bling belongs to the powerful and the rich. Their neighborhoods are amazing. In fact, the next verse will continue that pattern. For their residences there shall be access gates and luxury lounge suites for them to relax on. It is sketching the image that we have today of a world divided between the bourgeoisie, the elite, the comfortable, the secure, those who are safe behind gates, and the rest of us living on the streets, living in unsafe areas, crime-ridden areas. Look at the next verse. Their places shall be richly decorated. All of this, however, shall be of use only in the life of this world. Those who practice discretion, those who are conscientious, however, can look forward to the life hereafter with your divine Lord. Now, my dear friends, I started out this video by saying to you that Islam's mission is to transform society. Islam's mission is to overthrow elitism. Islam's mission is to check injustice, to check those who want to hog the benefits of society, and to allow all of humanity to share equally in the bounties and in the blessings and in the good fortune that God creates on this planet. This verse and these few verses in Surah Zukhruf, go to my translation, and I'm asking you, here's the translation, ourquran.net. Read my translation, that is chapter 43, verse 33. You can read from 30, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Then you go to any other translation, and you try and you tell me in the comments, tell me if I'm wrong. Please tell me, Anwar, you're talking nonsense, and especially those of you who know Arabic. The only area that you can question me on is this one. وَلَوْلَا أَنْ يَكُونَ النَّاسُ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً. You can tell me, no, but this is not a precondition. This is sketching a future scenario. No, I'm telling you, وَلَوْلَا أَنْ يَكُونَ النَّاسُ مُخْلِصِينَ وَلَوْلَا أَنْ يَكُونَ النَّاسُ قَانِتِينَ وَاسِطِينَ, whatever good trait. Ummatan wahidatan is a good trait. If mankind is not going to be one man, one nation, one entity, one community, then the elite, the powerful, will become entrenched in their position of power and elite, and the rest of people will just fend for themselves. My dear brothers and sisters, so I come back to the original point. The Qur'an that we want, the Islam that we want, the message that we want is a message that is hijacked. It is robbed. It is hollowed out. Why? Because the evil, the corrupt, have taken control of the leadership. Don't say that is speculate. That's a fact. When we say that Yazid took charge of head of the government of the global community of Muslims, and he murdered or attacked the grandson of the Prophet, who was a pious and holy man, who was a great celebrated person in the sight of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam. We cannot say that the powerful and the evil and the corrupt did not take control. They did take control. The same as they took control when Musa went up the mountain, and Samiri and all the others, they came and they took control of the Bani Israel. The only thing that you need to do is you need to still wake up and draw that conclusion and say, yes, I need to go back. Because that is the only thing, is you can't fathom, you can't reconcile with the idea that I need to go back to the books. I need to learn over again. I need to make the hadith just like ordinary words. It's not the words of Allah. It's not even the words of the Prophet, because the Prophet would have written it down if he wanted us to remember it, or he would have appointed people to relay his message. He would have appointed, like Bani Israel, there were 12 priests who were supposed to reproduce the message. Or one tribe was given that the Levite tribe was given that task. The Prophet would have said, this man or these people or this tribe will gather my words and will spread. He wouldn't. What you are saying is, no, this whole hadith thing, millions of hadith, they are sanctioned, they are endorsed by. No, they're not endorsed by the Prophet. The Qur'an says, if any of you dies and you want to make wasiyah, you want to make a command or an instruction for those who survive you, let them get 2 witnesses and write it down. If the Prophet had some wasiyah, which means a general set of instructions, he would have written it down. If there were like this millions of hadiths. We need to wake up. We need to say, listen, time to pull up our socks, time to go. The curse of Israel is proof enough for you. The betrayal of your Muslim priests, 1 million Hufaz in Egypt, 1 million Muslim scholars in Egypt, 1 million mosques in Egypt, can't do a damn thing against Israel, because they are all not following the original message. All those Saudis, all those great priests, all those Mufti Mengs that you are so in love with, they are useless, because they are not following the deen of Allah. They're following something which they re-engineered, something that they concocted out of hadith and selectively the Qur'an. Now that concocted mess is what you hold dearly, and you want to die for it. I feel sorry for people, because what you're going to wake up one day is, when you are resurrected, you will think that you were a most pious Muslim, that you hated the Shia like a good Muslim, you hated Christians, or you didn't have any sympathy for Christians or for non-Muslims. All of these will come back to haunt you. Qur'an says, if you are not going to act like one community, one creation, one family, ummatun wahidatun, the rich will dominate. They will live in the world of bling, 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 like we see today. That is going to be the world. And that is the world we are living in. My call is for us to go back to the Qur'an. Stop reading the book with the hadith in front of your eyes. Read the book from a logical perspective. Give the book to people who are not influenced by hadith to translate, first of all. I'll end there. I hope you found this useful. And please let me hear from you in my comments. And I'd love to hear what you think about the translation, ourquran.net. Alhamdulillah.